Here's an interesting fact for you. Single women now constitute the largest group buying property in South Africa. With all the changing dynamics in this industry, many people want to learn more about the property market and how it actually works. So the Property Show, which is in its third year of running in Johannesburg, showcases how people can invest in this often lucrative industry. To tell us more, we're joined in studio by Andrew Walker. He's the CEO and founder of SA Property Investors Network. Good to see you, Andrew. Thanks for coming in.
And thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. So we talk about property and who's buying property.
Yes.
Quite an interesting stat I opened up the conversation with. Single women now constitute the largest group buying property in South Africa. Is this true?
Yes, it is. Absolutely. I've been doing some research on it as well. And a very interesting small thing happened 2 weeks ago, Leanne. I ran an event at the Soweto Theatre and I had about 130 people at this event. And I did a head count and interestingly enough, I found that there were more women in the room than gentlemen.
Yeah.
Then I started doing research and finding this out, and I think the reason behind that, Leanne, is that in this day and age, in South Africa where we are, everyone's got to take control of their financial future. And if you look at stats, about 66% of women in South Africa are financially responsible for the entire family. And I think it's so awesome and great that the ladies are stepping up and they're starting to buy properties and create wealth through property.
Are they starting to buy, though?
Yes.
I mean, you sort of see them in a room, but the figures in terms of who's actually buying,
Yes.
are they there?
The reason I say they do is because we are an educational business. So we do coach some of these ladies, we do help them. Because the biggest issue that they have, Leanne, is confidence sometimes, lack of finance and lack of contact, but that's what we give them. So once we can show them the roadmap or the road path and help them buy their first property, what we find is people are so fearful just to get onto the property ladder, but when they have the know-how, when they have the support, when they can buy their first property, they buy the second, third, fourth. And as soon as you start connecting them to the right partners, I mean, for example, Leanne, I'm not sure if you've heard of Absa Bank's new product. It's called future rental product, whereby they're now looking at the future rental income to help people with affordability in South Africa.
Fantastic. Well,
Absolutely.
I mean, it's important, but let's look at property, because you said to me there's a couple of myths around property.
Yes.
So let me find some questions at you, and perhaps you can maybe help us out here. So we look at property, some people saying that at the moment the property sector is the last place you should be looking. Is this true or isn't it true?
Well, look, you know, I think it depends on the price bracket that we're looking at, Leanne. Across South Africa, I travel to Bloem, Durban, Cape Town, all over the place. When are we looking at the price brackets between, in my opinion, between 2.5 million and 5 million or above, the property market is very slow. Property prices, what I've seen, are dropping. However, Leanne, personally, I'm busy buying and selling properties below the million. So if you go speak to the private properties, the Absa banks, if you go speak to all the professionals, they'll tell you the exact same thing, is that below that million rand mark, the properties are churning faster than we can keep up with it.
Yeah.
But you go about 3-4 million rand property, they start to stick. The problem I found, Leanne, is that the problem is not necessarily the market or the estate agents, it's the sellers. They're wanting more for their property than what it's actually really worth.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, are we seeing a devaluation? Because some people say, I just want to get my money out. And the thing is that, I mean, when you're talking over that mark, are people getting this money? It's a bad economy right now.
No, sure. There's a lot of uncertainty, Leanne, in the economy right now. And we all know that we can't hide from that. And I can only speak from my own experience, you know, going through two recessions, is that at the end of the day, Leanne, everyone's going to need a place to live. In the property cycles, markets go up, markets go down, and we are going through what I call a bit of a slump, where there is uncertainty. But remember, where there's uncertainty, there's opportunity. The yields are going up in certain areas. In certain places, it's cheaper now to buy than it is to rent. So, yes, the economy isn't great, but are banks still lending? Absolutely. Absa Bank coming out with 105% loan to value, encouraging and teaching people how to get onto the ladder, because now is the time to invest.
Yeah. In terms of looking at repossessions, looking at evictions, forced evictions, is this a big thing you're seeing?
No, it is. And unfortunately, we are seeing more and more of it. You're talking thousands and thousands. And, you know, dealing directly with the banks are really trying to help out these people who are struggling. Ourselves as investors are trying to help these sellers. So we are seeing lots of repossessions. But that's where we can come along as the property investors to help those sellers get out of the mess.
So let's move the focus from here and let's go to Cape Town now, because there's this whole talk about property being far too expensive in Cape Town. And they say, if you haven't already got a property in Cape Town, forget about it. Because of international interest in buying there, they've driven prices through the ceiling. Is this the fact?
In my opinion, 100%. So going back the last 5-7 years, there were certain areas in Cape Town where property prices were climbing 20%. And people were making a lot of money. Now, I was in Cape Town a few months ago and I spoke to a few of the big estate agents. And because it's Cape Town, again, and this issue comes in where sellers want more for their property. And would I personally invest in Cape Town? No, I wouldn't. For the reason you gave. Property prices were doing this up and up. And what goes up must go down.
Yeah.
So I personally wouldn't invest there right now because of that reason. There are other areas, believe it or not, areas like Bloemfontein, Durban, certain areas of Joburg are still ripe for property investment.
Better investment to look here in this area and where you mentioned than going and looking at a big touristy spot.
You see, because what you've got to look at is people... I'll tell you the biggest mistake that people make in property. Can I share it with you?
Please.
People buy with emotion, not with their calculator. So they'll see this fancy house, they buy the property, they don't know what they're doing, they don't know how to manage their financial affairs, but they're bought emotionally, right? What we teach people, and what people have to realize is that they've got to make informed decisions. Is this going to make sense? If I buy the property today, is the sustainability there for the future? Am I going to make money out of this property? Because if the answer is no, take the emotion out, but buy with your calculator. That's what we teach.
So it's really interesting because, at the end of the day, people think that property is a major investment.
Yes.
Yes, it is, but you don't necessarily own it. The bank owns it until you pay it off.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you're getting yourself into a big thing.
Yeah,
you said something interesting, though, because you said that banks are still offering and they're giving you the loans. Are they really? Because
absolutely.
I speak to people that are trying to buy properties, and they have to jump through fire hoops and dodge the biggest things to just qualify for a loan.
So remember I told you there's myths about the property industry. That is probably the biggest myth. I am seeing more and more people getting 100% bonds in property. In fact, more than that. Because remember, how do banks make the money? They've got to lend money. And I sat down with Absa Bank a few months ago and we looked at how much money they were lending in August last year and August this year. Now guess which year they were lending more money in? This year, but the economy is a bit unstable at the moment. There's lots of uncertainty. Yet more money is being lent this year than last year. So the reality is, and I know this because I'm dealing with the bond originators. I'm buying properties myself. I'm helping first-time buyers and investors get in the market. I'm seeing more grants being granted. Perhaps I think the issue there could be, Leanne, is that if one goes to apply for a bond and they don't have their ducks in a row, if they don't have the right paperwork, if they're not looking after the credit profile, yes, because they submit the paperwork to the bank, the paperwork's a mess, the credit profile's a mess, so the issue's not the bank, it's the person applying. So before they apply for that bond, we need to make sure, is your credit profile up to scratch? Do you have all your documents? Do you have your 3 months bank statements? If it's through a company, do we have those financial records? So before we go to the bank, we make sure it's in order, and when it's in order, you submit that application and the bond will be granted within a week.
Okay, well, there's some good advice for you.
Absolutely.
Wrap it up, the property show, when's it taking place?
Oh, it's awesome.
Where is it?
So the property show is going to be at the Sandton Convention Centre. As you said, it's a third year running.
Yeah.
And the first time I went to I was a guest and I walked around there like a kid in a sweetie shop because the great thing about the show is there's going to be about 8,000 people there this weekend.
Wow.
Now, I'm not a guest anymore, I'm an exhibitor. And the reason why I'm so excited about it is it's a go-to platform for property investors, for people that want to buy their first home. For example, if you're buying your first home, you could go to the show and there's a theatre for first-time buyers.
Okay.
If you want to buy your second, third, fourth property, there's an investor theatre. Now, I'm lucky, I've got a stand. The SA Property Investors Network has a stand right by the theatre. And tomorrow at 12:30, I'm going to be talking about a live deal analysis. So I'm going to show everyone in the room, this is how we fund the deals, this is how we run the numbers, this is, and Real on the Deal will join me, this is how we don't make mistakes, or how we don't.
Can you get in for free?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
good.
absolutely.
So you get in for free, and then you've got to buy the house.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Thanks for chatting to us. Lots
Brilliant.
of energy
Thank
on
you,
this
Leanne.
Friday morning.
Yes.
Andrew Walker, the CEO and founder of SA Property Investors Network, talking to us about this property show and some interesting facts about property. The show is taking place at the Sandton Convention Centre on the 19th and 20th of October. All right, we'll see you after the break to say goodbye.